Welcome to the With You Rugby Podcast, designed to give you an in-depth look at the United States Rugby Foundation, including our grant programs and recipients, fundraisers, events, and much more. Now let's get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Vizard, president of the United States Rugby Foundation, and I want to welcome you to another of our With You Rugby podcast. And as we get closer to our 2023 U.S. Rugby Hall of Fame induction ceremony slated for Salt Lake City on Saturday, September 16th, we thought it would be a good idea to get to know this year's Hall of Fame inductees and special award recipients just a little bit better. And today we welcome in former Stanford Cardinal and Dallas Harlequin player, a two-time chairman of USA Rugby, a member of World Rugby's executive board since 2011, and a 2023 U.S. Rugby Hall of Fame inductee, Mr. Bob Latham. Welcome, Bob. Thanks for coming today.
Good to be with you, Biz.
Hey, Bob, so I know you're on the road a lot. Where are you talking to us from today?
I'm actually home. This is my home office that kind of became a man cave during COVID, but this is my comfort spot in Dallas.
Well, thank you.
In Dallas.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time today. Hey, Bob, as we do with all our inductees and special award recipients, tell us a little bit about your upbringing. What sports did you play, and where'd you grow up as a kid?
I grew up outside Chicago in a suburb called Riverside, just to the west of downtown Chicago. And like a lot of people in that area in those days, which was 60s and 70s, you played sports by the season. So everybody just went from one to another. But my primary sports when there wasn't snow on the ground was tennis primarily and baseball. And when there was snow and ice on the ground, it was ice hockey primarily and wrestled as well.
Cool. Now you go to Stanford after high school, where you get introduced to the sport of rugby. How did you first get introduced to the sport there?
Actually, I was on an overseas studies program in England through Stanford with a self-contained Stanford enclave there. And there must have been half of the Stanford rugby team that went over for that quarter, many of whom I knew, my friends, and became my friends. And there was actually a rugby pitch on the property where we were staying. So we'd go out there and practice, and they would teach me the sport, and we ended up hooking up and playing with a local club. So that was my first introduction to it. And then when I got back to the Stanford campus, they were very encouraging and very supportive. Come on out, and just
Play for the Cardinal.
Wing and scrum half.
And did you prefer one or the other?
Well, I like the open space of wing. I mean, I was pretty fast, but I like handling the ball at scrum half, and it usually depended on who was around, who was injured, and who wasn't, as to which whether I'd be inside or outside.
And describe your strengths and weaknesses as a player.
Well, certainly speed was probably my greatest asset. I was a pretty good ball handler, had decent hands. Weaknesses was, I wish I'd pick up the sport earlier, because by the time you start developing instincts, you're getting a little long at the tooth. So I always felt like I was still learning the sport. And then, my playing weight was probably about 165 pounds. So occasionally I would be Mike Cat to somebody else's Jonah Lomu, if I might
okay.
Both imagery from the 1995 World Cup. Yes.
That's funny. Now, after Stanford, you attended law school at University of Virginia. You also played rugby there. What were some of your fondest memories playing for UVA?
Well, part of it was just, getting on the pitch. I mean, everybody tells you first year law school is going to be the worst year of your life, and you're going to lead a very monolithic existence. And just to get back on the pitch and see that rugby players are the same the world over, and meet a whole different set of people was terrific. And I'll tell you one of my best memories is the summer between my first and second year law school. I stayed in Charlottesville and played sevens for UVA throughout the up and down the East Coast on the seven circuit. It was my introduction to sevens, and loved it. So I fondly look back on those times, particularly that summer.
That's cool. Now, after law school, you end up in Texas. You hook up with the Dallas Harlequins. Why the Quins, and how long did you play for them?
Well, I went to Dallas for some personal and professional reasons, but certainly helped that the Quins established themselves by that point. This was 1983, and it established themselves as certainly the best club in Texas. I mean, no disrespect to the other clubs at the time, but I think they would acknowledge that, and one of the best in the country. So everything kind of came together. And why the Quins is because I knew a couple of guys playing for them, and the leadership just did things right, and I think we continued to do things right, and it was great to be with an organization that wasn't out to just have a run in the park. Not that there's something wrong with that, but that was really trying to achieve something in sport, and that was what I wanted.
Yeah. Now, you served as president of the Quins during their heyday in the 80s. Was that your start into rugby administration?
Yeah, it was 80s, actually late 80s into 90s. I started with various club positions, as everybody does, I'd seen how my predecessors did it, particularly Nelson Spencer, who founded the Quins, and also founded USA Rugby, one of the founders of USA Rugby. So, I had a template to follow.
So he was a good mentor for you then?
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm going to look down at my paper here. From there, you held many prominent roles in rugby. To name a few: two-time chairman of USA Rugby, a World Rugby judicial officer. You're on the World Rugby Council. You have served on the executive board of World Rugby since 2011, chairman of World Rugby Regulations Committee since 2012. First off, congratulations and thank you for giving back to the sport. And how does one go from president of the Harlequins to being on World Rugby's executive board?
It's a long and winding road, but really just being in the right place at the right time. A lot of it was tied to the Olympic effort, and when I retired from as a player, I wanted to stay involved with the sport. So I knew a lot of people in Texas and the Western RFU, and became one of the appointees from the Western RFU to the USA Rugby board, and got involved trying to get rugby recognized by the U.S. Olympic Committee, which then kind of drew the attention of the then IRB, and we, the United States had never had a voice on the then IRB, now World Rugby, and through my various associations, globally with IRB delegations trying to get rugby into the Olympics, I got to know a lot of those folks, and thought that we try to get an American first of all on the council, and then get a permanent seat. So I was just in the position to do it just by happenstance, really. Mm-hmm. And there's other, it's funny. I think I should have just hidden the fact that I have a law degree, because I think people think that if you have a law degree, oh well, you can get us into the Olympics. It doesn't really it doesn't really work that way. They don't teach how to get into the Olympics in law school, but for whatever reason, I got tapped partially because of a diploma on my wall.
Well, let's talk about the United States Olympic Committee, and they granted membership to USA Rugby. Tell us how that process played out and how rugby was admitted back into the Olympics in 2016.
Yeah, again, it kind of goes back to my last answer on the fortuitous timing. People look at 1995 as a pivotal time in rugby, because that's when it went from amateur to professional. But another thing happened that year as well, and that is that there were two organizations that had something to do with international rugby: the IRB, which was a bit of a closed shop, and then FIRA, which had a lot of other European countries. And the IOC, one of the requirements to get into the Olympics is there has to be one and only one recognized international federation. So that rift had to be solved, and that also happened in 95. And that's about the time I got on USA Rugby, and in 1996, when then President Gene Roberts of USA Rugby said, get us in, and to the USOC. And the only reason we could, that starting that year, is because of what happened in 95, that there was now, the IRB was a recognized international federation. Otherwise we had no chance before then. So the first step was getting recognized as an affiliated organization, being one that could potentially become an Olympic sport. And we got that recognition in 1998, and then later a Pan Am sport, and finally an Olympic sport later down the line. But what happened so I was on the affiliated sport organization group, and they elect one person to the U.S. Olympic Committee for a 4-year term. So I was that delegate on the U.S. Olympic Committee board from the affiliated sports from 2000 to 2004. So the IRB people saw, like, here's a rugby guy that is on the board of a National Olympic Committee. We ought to get him involved. And the USOC saw me involved with the IRB and thought, oh, well, this guy's with them. When in reality, I'm not sure I really deserve that much attention from either group, but it worked. And it was a long effort. I mean, from 2001, which is the first time I went with an IRB delegation to Japan to try to push the effort with Asian Olympic committees, for 8 years up until 2009, trying to make the case of why rugby, and then we decided why rugby sevens should be in the Olympics, and then it wasn't for another 7 years till 2016 that got in.
Mm-hmm. But it has been successful, right? I mean, people around the world have loved it being added to the Olympics.
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. I mean, it's really only been at one, because in Rio in 2016, I was there in 2021 in Japan, which was a shame. It would have been the year after the 2019 World Cup that would have just segued right in there. But no, it's a one of the things we had going for us is we're a real sport with real athletes, fits into the Olympic time frame very well, a sevens tournament, and yeah, it's really led to the development of rugby sevens and rugby union in general around the world, because National Olympic Committees now took an interest in it, not with the thought that they might ever play in Olympics, but there's Continental Olympics, the Asian Games, the African Games, the Pan Am Games. There's even things underneath that. So it's been a huge addition. It's I don't think we're in any danger of losing our spot in the Olympics. We just had to knock down the door, but once we did that, it's rugby sells itself very well.
Now, looking back on your career, was it difficult juggling your law career with your rugby career?
Yes, but not as hard as it would be today. And I was very lucky. Again, I've had fortuitous timing, because we talked about what happened in 95, 96, about the time I stopped actively playing, with rugby going professional and the IRB having the one international federation. Well, the other thing happened then was the internet and cell phones. So when I was playing, they couldn't find you.
Right.
It was, you'd leave the office and train and play on weekends, and it's not like it is today where it was 24/7 everything. So I feel very, very fortunate to have played in that era, and I feel I'm sure it can be done today, but not as easily. And yeah, it was difficult to juggle at times. It's been easier as an administrator, because you get more established in your career, and I know the judges, and I can ask for can you postpone this. In fact, the 2016 Olympics, I was set for trial in Delaware, and I threw myself at the mercy of the court and said, look, I've been working for this day for a long time. He postponed for 2 weeks, and he did. So you can't do that as a third-year associate. You can as a 30-year lawyer.
Right. Now, of all your memories, rugby memories, Bob, is there one that stands out above the rest?
Well, since I just alluded to it, I think it would have to be, as you mentioned, I started on the Olympic effort in 1996, and to be there in Rio in 2016, when the American women's team and then the American men's team stepped out onto a pitch in the Olympics, after 20 years, that was pretty special.
Well, you might have answered the next question too. Then, looking back on your career, what are you most proud of?
Well, that'd certainly be one, but just more generally, just the relationships and the friendships that I've made. I mean, it's just such a great national community, a great global community of rugby people, and I'm pleased to be part of it, and it's just it's enriched my life.
And what does it mean being selected to the U.S. Rugby Hall of Fame inductee as an inductee?
Well, I mean, it's an unbelievable honor. It's very humbling. I can tell you that. I still feel like rugby has given me more than I have or ever will give rugby. But it's wonderful recognition, and one of the things I look forward to is just associating with the other inductees. I mean, I have for many years, but now, officially from now on, it's it really is a great USA Rugby community, a great American rugby community, and the Hall of Fame, I think, gives appropriate recognition and is integral to finding some glue that binds us together.
Well, it's certainly a well-deserved honor, Bob. Congratulations once again on being one of this year's inductees, and thank you for spending the time with us this morning.
Thank you, Brian.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for another of our With You Rugby podcast. For more information about the U.S. Rugby Hall of Fame and our Hall of Fame induction ceremony slated for Salt Lake City on Saturday, September 16th, go to our homepage at usrugbyfoundation.org. Thank you all for joining, and until next time, stay safe, everyone.